guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley Ariana, and holy shit, I think that was healing. There was something about that felt really healing as a 49ers fan. The Eagles just beat the absolute shit out of the Chiefs. The final score was 40-22, but it was 40-0 in, the fourth quarter. So, wow. Um, I think my immediate takeaways are just what an elite organization the Eagles have from the top down, from their GM, from their coaching staff. They have elite trenches, offensive line, defense. I mean, their defense is incredible. And run game and quarterback. And today, Spagnola and the Chiefs, they decided, how are we going to beat the Eagles? We're going to take away Saquon Barkley. Shout out to my one friend who bet that Saquon Barkley, he bet the under on Saquon Barkley, and I think that he wasn't going to get a touchdown. And I laughed at him. I thought that was ridiculous. I thought if the Eagles had a chance to win, that it was going to be on the back of Saquon Barkley. And I thought the Chiefs were going to win. I thought you can't bet against Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes had the worst performance. I mean, there was something about that was healing because in the Chiefs Bills game, the announcers to me they got too ahead of themselves. They started talking about how Patrick Mahomes was about to surpass Tom Brady, how Patrick Mahomes surpassed Joe Montana. I was like, he hasn't fucking won the Super Bowl yet, first of all. And even if he is, Joe Montana never lost the Super Bowl. So like I don't know. I got a little bit defensive as a 49ers fan, but even for Tom Brady, I was like, what the heck? I didn't realize Tom Brady was gonna call this game, and he kept it very professional the whole entire game, but I bet there was something, in him that was like, "Yeah, motherfucker, like, you gotta try harder. Like, I'm the fucking GOAT, and you're the GOAT too, and you're, historically transcendent talent." I'm not downing Patrick Mahomes, but he had a shitty game. He played horrible, took 6 sacks, Philly pressured him 16 times, multiple interceptions. I know a lot of that was Philadelphia and their defense and the offensive line not playing as good. Mahomes walked into some of those too. Not all of them. A lot of that, the credit goes to the Eagles and Chiefs O line being bad, but Mahomes didn't have a good performance. And it's like, and I still think, maybe eventually he'll pass Brady, pass Joe Montana, but it wasn't tonight. You got to work harder. And maybe the dynasty is over for the Chiefs too. Like I'm not saying it is, but I think that the reason the Chiefs have been so elite for so long is they have Andy Reid, they have Spagnola, they have Chris Jones, they have Patrick Mahomes, they had Travis Kelsey. Those guys didn't go anywhere. To me, it wasn't a surprise the Chiefs were in the Super Bowl because they had the best coaching staff and the best quarterback and an elite offensive weapon, best defense, one of the best O lines. And I thought, okay, this makes sense for the AFC that they got there. And Philly had the better team. Philly had better trenches. I mean, either way, this team, whatever team won, it was going to be the MVP was going to be the defense. I don't know if MVP has been announced yet. I'm sure it's Jalen Hurts. That I don't know if it was the last touchdown, but that touchdown that was when they were 27 and it put them up an additional 7 from Hurts to Devontae Smith. I don't know if Purdy can make that throw, by the way. And I've poo-pooed Jalen Hurts throwing before, but that was a fucking incredible throw. And the Chiefs dared them. They said, we're gonna sell out to stop Saquon. And in the beginning, the first quarter, the second quarter, Saquon Barkley wasn't getting like he was averaging like 1 yard a carry or negative yards. Like their run game was not doing shit. The only positive runs were when Jalen Hurts ran the ball, and I honestly didn't think he was running it enough in the beginning. They dared Hurts to throw, and I said it today. I was like, if the game plan is just to try to have Hurts beat them with his arm, I don't think he's gonna win. And he fucking won. Way to go, him. He had a great performance in the last Super Bowl too. The rest of the team around him wasn't as great, and he did fumble the football. He turned it over early, but then Mahomes turned it over multiple times. So what I think that it'll probably go to the MVP Super Bowl MVP will probably go to Hurts because I feel like voters prefer offensive players. I would give it to Cooper I would give it to Cooper DeJean. And do you know what's fucked up about that as a 49er fan? Is that the 49ers could have had Cooper. His birthday, by the way, I think this is a cool story. Cooper's birthday is today. So Cooper DeJean just fucking played for the Eagles, got the first interception of the game, played his ass off all game, and it was his birthday today. He turned 22. And the 49ers could have had him on the team. He was there when they drafted in the first round. And if you guys are on Twitter, or I heard he actually did this in the real press box too. Mike Silver stood up and said before the this was during the draft, and you know how like sometimes leaks come out early. Mike Silver stood up in the press box and said, "It's Cooper." And apparently everyone was really excited. He also tweeted it. So I was actually live during the draft and I saw Mike Silver say that it was Cooper before, and I was just like, "Oh my god, it's Cooper." Everyone was celebrating. And then it turns out that the 49ers were just trying to figure out like who the mole was because shit was leaking. So they gave Mike Silver false information to try to see if he would, say it, and they could suss out who was giving out the info. And then they took Ricky Pearsall, who I understand he did get shot to start this year. So this isn't completely fair on him because that's a hard way to start. But Ricky wasn't that good in college, and it was a major reach. He was supposed to be a later second round pick, and the 49ers got him in the first round. He's 26. He's going to be almost 30 for his second contract. And they could have had Cooper DeJean, who just, I think, should have been the MVP. I think I might have actually made a banner of this. Yeah. I think Cooper DeJean could have been or should be. I'm not sure if let me know in the comments if it was announced yet. Right before I went live, it hadn't been announced. But I think Cooper could be the Super Bowl MVP. That entire defense. It's hard to choose. If it could go to a coach, go to friggin' Vic Fangio. Congrats to him. All these years in the NFL, Vic Fangio, he's a Super Bowl winning coach. Nick Sirianni is a Super Bowl winning coach before Kyle Shanahan. Makes all those people that called Nick Sirianni a clown look dumb now, right? And I'm not saying he's not a clown, but I had lots of conversations about how much better Kyle Shanahan was than Nick Sirianni, and how much better the 49ers were than the Eagles, and how much better Brock Purdy was than Jalen Hurts. And I'll say Brock Purdy did not play that good in the Super Bowl. No, he did not. But anyways, Cooper DeJean turned 22 today, fucking set in motion the just disaster class of a game that the Chiefs were going to have with that first interception. Devontae Sweat also had an incredible game. Maybe it goes to one of the defensive linemen. Um, Holy shit, that was, and to be fair, I feel like when people were talking about this game, people were honest and they were saying the better team is the Eagles. The Eagles had the better D line, they had the better secondary, they had the better run game. AJ Brown is an elite wide receiver. But I think that people, had PTSD from last year when the 49ers were the better team. They were the better all around team. But where were they lacking? The quarterback advantage obviously went to Mahomes, and the coaching advantage obviously went to Andy Reid and Spagnuolo. And I think because the 49ers blew it, everyone was, had PTSD. So announcers, first things first, every, guy on ESPN, on NFL Countdown, everyone chose the Chiefs to win. And I think it's because the 49ers had the best team and lost. 49ers were never that good. Their defense was never as good as the Eagles' defense was tonight, ever. That team, yeah. And by the way, Christian McCaffrey got shut down in the Super Bowl. I know Saquon kind of got shut down in the Super Bowl too, but Brock Purdy ran for 12 yards in the Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts got positive yardage after positive yardage with his legs, and also made some elite throws. But I think that mobility really, I picked the Chiefs because I thought better QB and better coaching matchup. But it turned out to be the better team, the better defense, the better O line. They gave Hurts time to throw. They gave him a chance. Mahomes, the pocket was crumbling on him. I remember, in the first quarter, the pocket's crumbling, so he kind of runs out to the side. There's a guy chasing him, so he has to run back in, and he runs straight into a sack, which like kind of is like, okay, don't run a sack, but also like where was he supposed to go? The defense was completely surrounding him. What a cathartic. Like, what an experience that was. I don't know. Before the game, my one of my friends who's not big into football, she was like, "Who are you rooting for?" My dad and I were talking about it, and we were like, "We hope both teams lose." And I think it's because I earlier this year, you saw that video. It was like a viral video on Twitter of an Eagles fan just like harassing a Packers fan at a game. Sometimes Eagles fans can be really distasteful. And I wasn't opposed. So I was like, I don't want them to win, but I also don't want the Chiefs to win because I knew the narrative was gonna be, Patrick Mahomes is, the next coming of Jesus and all that. And I'm not saying he's not. Once again, I think he's a great quarterback, but I was just like, didn't want to hear those narratives. When the game was happening, though, it became more clear. I was like, I want the Eagles to win. I think this is kind of badass. I think it's cool for Jalen Hurts and all of them who, they just were in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. They have a down year last year. People are calling for Sirianni to be fired. And I felt like the organization showed teams all around the NFL settle to be mediocre. They settle to suck forever. The 49ers, there was needs. It was a very clear going into last offseason. You had to address the O-line. You had to address the O-line. And also the D-line, but you had to address that O-line. And they didn't. Where the Eagles, on the other hand, they saw their areas of weaknesses. And Howie Roseman, who I think is probably the best GM in the NFL, they didn't go out and they didn't hesitate. Free agency, draft, they have built those trenches up for years. I mean, this isn't something that they did in one offseason, although they did make great last offseason moves, but also like year after year, they've made smart draft decisions. They don't have the 49ers. If you look at their first round picks, it's like 1 out of 10 guys is still on the team. Like the other guys they all suck, or don't not. I'm not saying suck, but they aren't good enough. They weren't good enough for a second contract in the NFL. Where if you look at the Eagles, like they have gone out and drafted basically the entire Georgia defensive line year after year after year. And because they had such a stable defensive line, they were able to get Jalen Carter, who people passed on because he was a bit of a head case. But the Eagles believed that they had a stable enough organization that they, set a standard, that they had enough leadership within the room that they could actually take in a guy like that and kind of be like, no, like that funny business mental shit ain't gonna work here. We have a standard. This is what we're gonna do. Nick Sirianni obviously is more of an emotional guy. He's not calling the plays, so he can kind of tend to the players' emotions. We're on the 49ers. I mean, your leaders are punching people. By the way, we'll get into Deebo Samuel demanding a trade for the second time. They should have traded him the first time. But we'll get into Deebo Samuel demanding a trade in a second. But even Fred Warner, who I think is an excellent leader and like a good guy, he talked about how Jair Brown, I've mentioned this a million times on my channel, but he talked about how Jair Brown stays up all night before games playing video games, and how he told Fred Warner and was kind of laughing about it. So him and Fred Warner have like a little bit of a joke where Fred's like, that's not cool. And it's like, that shit wouldn't fly on the Eagles. Can you imagine? They'd be like, what the fuck are you doing? No, this is a profession. We take this shit serious. If you're gonna do that, you're gonna be riding the bench. Those leaders on the defense and on the Eagles, I think they hold themselves to a standard of play on the field, and they also hold themselves to a standard of leadership. Like their team captains are actually um speaking up to the young guys and showing this is what it means to be an Eagle. And unfortunately, I feel like the 49ers have done that less and less. We have a few guys. I do think Fred Warner, his play speaks for itself on the field, but I wish he was more of a vocal leader, within the young guys. Nick Bosa, we've talked about this before. He's more of an independent contractor. His play on the field, is good, but he's not doing much influence to the defensive line. Trent Williams consistently does not practice. Even when he's healthy, he does not practice. He takes multiple vet days a week. He's not really talking to the other O linemen throughout the week. Brock Purdy, he's hopefully going to start, taking even more of a strong leadership role. We've seen him do that a little bit, but I think he's kind of the Mr. Irrelevant younger guy. So hopefully he steps up a little bit more in that way. I want to say the only guy on offense that I really think that is like that, with not only their play on the field, but how they speak, in the locker room and to the media, would probably be Kittle. Maybe I'm missing some. But yeah, I think I wanna say that I think the Eagles organization from their players, from their GM, from the head coach, not having not being egotistical and letting the best offensive play caller call the plays and letting, going and getting Vic Fangio, who the 49ers could have had. Vic Fangio wanted to come to the 49ers. He literally did not sign his contract with Miami because he was waiting for the 49ers. And then the 49ers said, oh, we don't want him because he ran a 4-3. And the 49ers run a wide 9. And Chris Kosaric and that defensive line that's been shit, by the way, runs a wide 9. So they didn't want Vic Fangio. So then Vic Fangio for 1 year goes to Miami and then gets picked up by the Eagles. I don't know. To me, 49ers have some shit to learn. I'm going to get into the next topic in 1 second, but I want to check some of these comments. I hope I'm not kissing the Eagles' ass too much. I'm not trying to, everyone has their problems, but I feel a little bit impressed because I think the way that they won was the way that the 49ers, you know what I mean? Like the 49ers knew they didn't have the better quarterback going into the Super Bowl, but they thought we have the better, we have coaching that can match up. We have the better defense. We have the better offense, all the offensive skill players. Deebo Samuel, who completely shit the bed, and then now is trying to say that he didn't have enough opportunities. He was the most targeted wide receiver in the entire Super Bowl, by the way. In the Super Bowl, Deebo Samuel, most targeted. Should not have been most targeted. Should have been fucking Kittle. Should have been Juwan Jennings. Then, flash forward to this year, literally got 4 less targets in the following year, second most targeted offensive player on the team. I didn't get enough opportunity. No, we gave you too many opportunities. And every game that you took over, you dropped the ball, you fucking got 0 yak yards, and you suck, and you're fat now. Sorry, I'm being mean to Deebo. Deebo used to be my favorite player, and I think that's the shit that pisses me off too, is when someone has the ability. Like, Deebo is unique and special and could have been a Hall of Fame player, like if he cared, you know? But he was showing up to training camp and OTAs out of shape year after year. He's hitting teammates. He's after wins. The only, dominant performance that the 49ers had last year. Like last season was so shitty for them. They finally have one good game. Deebo didn't get enough targets, so he throws a hissy fit on Twitter about it. Shut up. You're not you're not T.O. and you're not good enough to be T.O. Like people didn't like when T.O. did it, and at least he was a Hall of Fame talent. Deebo, you're not even good enough. Mahomes was overly panicking when he didn't have to. I agree. My dad texted me that, and he said that Mahomes played like Purdy when Purdy is kind of like pushing to make something happen. Because sometimes Purdy will do that. Sometimes Purdy doesn't, but usually you see Mahomes like calm under pressure. I said that to my friend who was watching the Super Bowl with. I don't think I've ever seen Mahomes rattled. Even when he's down, I feel like Mahomes always feels, thinks he's going to win. He kind of like oozes ease and confidence. Like you're in the Super Bowl, the biggest game of your career, and you look at Mahomes and he's just like cool as a cucumber. His eyes were kind of, bouncing all over right before the play call. His feet were tap dancing a little bit. Not overly, but yeah, definitely. You can't bet against Mahomes except when he's playing against the genius Kyle Shanahan. Yeah. What up, Papa J? Montana's still better than Mahomes. I agree. And I don't know. I also think like I'm of the belief that Mahomes can be a transcendent talent and so can Joe Montana, and that it's a completely different game. Like the way that it's called now and the way that the defense can hit and where you can throw on offense. Like I don't love that we have to like tear down one incredible quarterback to like build up another. I think we can be like Mahomes is clearly fucking incredible, even with this game, and still say Tom Brady is amazing and Joe Montana is amazing. And they all played kind of in different, although, Tom Brady played again when he was older, which I think is, impressive and adds to his GOAT legacy. I want to say this hurts Mahomes. I still think Mahomes is wonderful, but I think when you play this shitty in a Super Bowl, like did Joe Montana ever play this shitty in a Super Bowl? No, I mean he never lost a Super Bowl. Did Tom Brady ever? I know Tom Brady lost, but this was like a lot of that was on Mahomes. And I mean, the defense was incredible, but I don't know. I think Mahomes is still incredible. I'm not trying to like, I don't want to like get clipped and someone be like, wow, you said Mahomes isn't great. I think Mahomes is great, but this wasn't a good game. And this counts against him. when you're building up a GOAT, like a Hall of Fame top 3 quarterback in the entire history of the NFL type of thing, like, yeah, you're set to an unbelievably high standard. Um, Edgar says, "Hi, Ashley. What's up, everyone? Vic Fangio put on a master class. Happy for him. Wonder what John." That's what I said. He wanted the 49ers in 2013. He literally stalled, got offered the job by Miami. Everyone from Colin Cowherd to Flores to um, even Matt Mayoko, who's like very connected on the beat, said that the reason he hadn't signed the contract yet is he was in talks with the 49ers, and the 49ers wanted him to change his scheme to the wide nine. So, yeah. Great lesson for Shanahan. Yes, but it's like, I wonder how you even, because like Saquon is younger than Christian McCaffrey. We can't just like assume that Christian McCaffrey is going to come and be better than Saquon next year. They need to get Brock Purdy more offensive weapons, but I think that pick number 11 this year will be on that D line. And I think this game was, a good showing of why the defensive line is so important. So the 49ers strategy of like really heavily investing in the D line, we've seen that pays off. Both teams had great defenses. I know that the Eagles put up 40. The Chiefs defense was balling out that first quarter. I saw Chris Jones had something with his neck during a tush push, and I think they just got tired because they were really holding Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts in the beginning and stopping the run completely. And Philly kept with the run. Like they were passing, but they kept with the run. And I think they just wore them down. There was, I forget what point of the game it was, but there was at some point that the Eagles had like 37 minutes of possession and the Chiefs had like 18. So the Chiefs defense was on the field for a really long time and started breaking down. As 49er fans, I feel like we can kind of look back to last year and some of those defensive collapse, or not last year with, I'm thinking of Steve Wilkes. Sorry, it's hard because like this season for the 49ers is over, but I'm also talking about it right now. So the year with Steve Wilkes, I felt like the 49ers had a good defense, but sometimes you would see them really collapse. But to me, it was more like the offense is not on the field. They are not scoring. So obviously by the third and fourth quarter, the defense is going to end up folding. And that to me never didn't necessarily mean that the defense played bad. It just meant that they got tired for like holding up for a long time. And I feel like the Chiefs defense kept their offense in the game for a good amount of time. But like I saw at one point, it was kind of funny. It's not funny because I feel bad because he's a person, but also as a 49ers fan, it's kind of funny. Chris Jones like fell to his knees and like had his hands. And that was, I think, when the Eagles were up 17-0 and the Eagles, Patrick Mahomes took 2 sacks in a row and the Chiefs were punting. And I think Chris Jones was just like, holy fuck, like we cannot be going back out there on defense. I just sat down. This is insane. Like our offense has to do something, man. Was it already announced Hurts was MVP? I figured, and I hope that my beginning comments, like kind of talking up Vic Fangio, Cooper DeJean, Devontae Sweat, like that entire defense. I hope it wasn't poo-pooing Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts had a really good game. I just think that defense was like so incredible that it gave Hurts the opportunity to have a good game. I mean, he had that one turnover. The one good thing about his turnover is it was like in the end zone. So it was kind of just like an arm punt, and the Chiefs didn't end up scoring any points on that because the Eagles defense is so good. A lot of times now, actually talking about last year with Nick Sorensen, when Brock would turn the ball over. So, like, one, it's like, okay, bad Brock for turning the ball over. But then two, the defense would end up giving up points. So that would really hurt you. The only thing that happened with the Eagles turnover is like they were in field goal range. So they could have had 3 points there. But it wasn't like a horrible loss because the defense stopped and kind of bailed out Hurts in the beginning. And then, like I said, when Mahomes, like when that first happened, I was like, if Mahomes can just play clean, then that turnover might come back to hurt you. When you think about Jalen Hurts' his first Super Bowl performance 2 years ago, that fumble killed him because Mahomes played a clean game. Um, But this game, the defense was just so much more tough and physical, and you know the Eagles were able to pull themselves out of that. Um, Ashley, even Joe Montana couldn't throw like Dan Marino. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like hard to um compare elite Hall of Fame quarterbacks. They all have their different skill sets. I think Joe Montana, when we talk about, uh, for the first time in a long time, I think Patrick Mahomes looking skittish. Joe Montana, cool as a cucumber in that fourth quarter. Didn't matter if they were down. You knew that he could come back and win. Brady had a bit of that too. I think there's a bit of magic with those elite quarterbacks where like they believe in themselves no matter what. And usually I feel that way about Patrick Mahomes. Usually, I mean, last year with the 49ers, they were down 10, and Mahomes looked like, oh, I'm just gonna eat a sandwich and then score a touchdown, no big deal. This game, Mahomes looked a little bit rattled. It happens. Excellent DC. Vic Fangio's excellent DC, but not a savior. No one's a savior, but I mean the 49ers are hoping that Robert Saleh makes a big impact, right? Like Vic Fangio maybe isn't the savior, but he turned around that Eagles defense from last year. And the defense, in my opinion, just won them the game. So that kind of makes him a savior a little bit. Like it's obviously not all on one guy, but what can one guy bring? One guy can bring a lot of players. He can bring a whole different standard, a whole different atmosphere and attitude. And that can influence multiple players. So then it's a lot of different players, but kind of inspired by one. That's what the 49ers are hoping with Robert Saleh. So, you know, hey Ashley, why draft Sheen when Kyle could have a mediocre receiver that reminds him of himself? He's never gonna live down when someone asked why did you draft Ricky Pearsall, and he said he reminded him of himself in college. Kyle Shanahan didn't go to the NFL, by the way, so that's like not not a good comparison. Not good. Ricky Pearsall would have been a fine pick if he was like picked in the third, fourth round. I think the funny thing is he was projected to go like late second round. I think even that would have been too high. Now maybe next year he'll ball out. It's hard to completely judge him because obviously the beginning half of the year, the whole getting shot thing, and it's hard for me to criticize him because I feel like people are like, he got shot. I'm like, I know, but also in camp before he got shot, he like literally injured his hamstring right away, and he's had multiple hamstring injuries in college, and he wasn't getting open. I don't know. They ended the season. I will say they finally, after they were eliminated from the playoffs. So what the fuck? Why didn't they do this earlier? But after they were eliminated from the playoffs, they finally stopped force feeding Deebo Samuel and started going to Pearsall a little bit more. And I actually thought he showed out in those last 3 games. I thought he had a good 3 games. Now I don't know if it was like first round talent good, but I thought he was pretty good. So maybe he'll surprise me this year and make more of an impact. But I do think that Dejean was the correct pick there. I know that they have Demo Lenore, but I think you're never going to turn down having 2 good corners. And even if they didn't use him at corner, he could have been used at safety. I think they're probably going to let Hufanga walk because Hufanga's a little bit slower. He's more of a like blitzer guy, and Robert Saleh does lets. Oh, Robert, sorry, I couldn't speak for a second, so I tried to breathe. Robert Saleh does less blitzing, and he cares more about speed in that secondary. And Hufanga's strength was not speed. He ran like a 4.7. He was very slow. Very smart. And I'm not necessarily sure if they're not gonna try to get him back. And maybe if they could get him very cheap. But he's just not a Robert Saleh type of player. Cooper is though, and I think he could have been a star. Like I said, I thought he had a case to be MVP. It makes sense that it went to Hurts. He had a lot of good throws. Spagnuolo's plan was shut down Barkley, make Jalen Hurts beat you. He fucking did it. So it makes sense that he got MVP. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Hurts was poised. He didn't mess it up. I agree. I mean, he had that one pick, but that was like early first quarter, and then for the rest of the game, it's almost like he was more settled than Patrick Mahomes. Now, maybe part of that is like he was winning by multiple touchdowns, so he was able to calm down a little bit. But I thought he played phenomenal. And this is like, I don't want people to think that I'm just like building him up, but for blowing smoke. I was critical. Like I thought that the Chiefs would win and that the Eagles would lose because I thought that Spags would try to shut down Barkley and probably have success at it. He had success at shutting down Chris McCaffrey, and I thought that they would try to dare Hurts to beat you, and I thought Hurts would lose. So I think what I'm doing is just I was wrong. I'm impressed, and I'm not too proud to say I was wrong. I'm like, damn, that was good football. Way to go. I also think like it's nice that the Eagles won because I think if the Chiefs would have been winning by like 40, I would have tuned out. I would have been like, what the fuck, I didn't want to see them blowing anyone out. I wanted it to be a close game, but if it was going to be not a close game, the Eagles needed to be winning. It was cathartic, for 49er fans. The Chiefs have caused them a lot of grief. The Eagles fans, it's like more 50-50. We lost the game, we won a game. The Chiefs, they just kill us every single time, regular season, Super Bowl, whenever they can. So I think it was cathartic to see that. 49er Scotland says Chris McCaffrey got a TD, Saquon didn't. Yeah, but Chris McCaffrey fumbled on the goal line. Saquon didn't. Saquon was blocking his ass off, by the way. Some of those, like I said, Hurts ran the ball really well. I saw there was like a replay of one, and Saquon Barkley like threw his not just his shoulder, but his like hip in it. I was like, don't get injured doing that. But it was pretty cool. My instant reaction is the Chiefs didn't get to hold without penalties. Yeah. I felt like that very first, literally like to start the game within like the first minute, there was a call against the Eagles that I thought was kind of BS, and Tom Brady said it too. Like Tom Brady was like, I don't like that call. They were both like hand fighting, and a call was called against the Eagles. And I was like, fuck. I even texted my dad about it, and I should have texted Tom because Tom Jensen, who I normally do a show with, we all talked about it, and I was like, I think the way that the refs need to call this game is they need to either just let them play, obviously not egregious, but don't overcall, or even call a little bit in favor of the Eagles, because I don't want there to be any narratives. If the Chiefs won and they had lots of calls in their favor, it's like that takes the celebration out of it. That takes that's like an asterisk on their dynasty. If you win, but you win because of calls. So I thought that the best way, and I assume the Chiefs would win, but I thought that the best thing that you do is don't call the game for the Chiefs because that's going to fuck it up. And that first call they called, like I said, it was against the Eagles, and I thought it was kind of BS, and Tom Brady thought it was BS. But after that, there was tons of calls that were on the Chiefs. There was tons of calls that were on the Eagles. I felt like it was very fair. Both teams. There was one, like to me, it was even a little bit in favor of the Eagles. There was one time that Patrick Mahomes got hit like in the head, and I was like, normally, like even Tom Brady was like, that was pretty crazy that they let that get off. So I was happy with the calls, and yeah, calls don't go to them and they lose. I think what happened is the Chiefs made mistakes and the Eagles capitalized on those mistakes. When you go back to the 49ers Chiefs Super Bowl, the Chiefs made tons of mistakes. Neither the 49ers or the Chiefs played their best game in the Super Bowl. 49ers played one of their worst games, but the Chiefs didn't play great either. But every time they turned the ball over or they fumbled or whatever, the fucking 49ers didn't do anything with it. They didn't score. They didn't do anything. Every time the Chiefs messed up, the Eagles got points out of it, and I think that's the difference in the game. Hopefully the Eagles don't get Myles Garrett. I don't think they will, and I think the Chiefs are an excellent organization, and like they wouldn't not want him, but they have such a good defensive line. I don't think they're going to give up the capital to go get him. They've also drafted their defensive line really well, so they have kind of like a younger team. Myles Garrett, I could see him going to the Niners. I could see him going to Dallas. I could see him going to Washington, kind of more needy team. Like 49ers have like one good defensive lineman. The entire Eagles defensive lineman, they're all front five or front four are incredible. So I don't know if the Eagles would want to give up points to go get that guy. I think a team that has like one or no guys is going to go try to get that guy, Oh, okay. I'm really going through the comments. And Dang Dang says defense wins championships. See, I didn't think so. I thought I thought that's how it used to be, but I thought that it was gonna come down to coaching and the quarterback, and you're right, that quarterback can't get the ball out, he can't run, he can't do shit when he's getting tackled, like that. Um, and then Casey was too much pretty visible. Yeah, I mean, I think they had 3 runs or something. Was that the entire game or just the first half? I don't know. They like barely ran the ball. I felt like the Eagles did a good job. Even like I said, that first quarter when they were getting like 1 yard, they stuck with the run, and eventually that really wore down the Chiefs defense. Oh, I thoroughly enjoyed the game. So did I. And I was like, oh, I thought that if it was like a blowout, I wouldn't enjoy it, but I actually really did. Tishon chooses ignorance every time. Dude thinks he's way better than he is. Shit pisses me off. Like, Deebo used to be my favorite player, and now he's like, I didn't get the opportunity. Like, he really believes, like, okay, go go have fun in Jacksonville. You know what I mean? Like, go have fun wherever, whatever team, gets you. Because one, I don't know if any team is gonna trade him. The 49ers thoroughly fucked up because his contract was over this year. They could have caught him with very like little dead cap, but they extended him in September after he came into camp like not in the best shape of his life, in my opinion, not able to separate, not, to me, if you let it play out, the extra contract wasn't a good deal, move on, cut your losses, whatever. No, instead they extended his contract, so now they're gonna have to cut him or whatever. Like, because if no team trades for him, which I don't think a team will trade for him, he's making 22 million next year or something. I know his original cap hit was 25, but I think it's lower this year, but not that much lower. And I don't think any team is going to trade to pay Deebo that much money, which means the 49ers are going to need to cut him. They're going to have to cut him with a post June 1st to try to spread the dead cap out. And he's just going to hit their books for fucking 2 years in a row because the 49ers decided to extend him for no reason. Ridiculous. To me, that makes Kyle Shanahan look very bad. Like, this guy told you he asked for a trade years ago. He told you he didn't want to be on the team. And then when he punched a player, immediately he should have been benched and traded. That's what would have happened if he was on the Eagles. That's what would have happened if he was on the Rams. Think of the Rams. They're getting rid of Cooper Kupp, who's been nothing but, the most stand-up picture of what it means to be a Ram, and they're moving off of him because, hey, your production is down. Instead, Kyle Shanahan was trying to smooth things over with Deebo because him and Deebo are friends. And he wanted to make Deebo happy, so he's force-fed him the ball in the Super Bowl, but also this year against the Rams, against LA, in a gotta-win game. After that Bears game where they spread the ball around, spread it around to 7 different offensive players. They forced the ball to Kittle multiple times. They targeted Jennings multiple times. They spread the ball around, and they fucking won that game. The first win in multiple games. Deebo goes on Twitter, complains. Everyone, me, all the other people who talk about the 49ers were like, Kyle's not going to adjust his game plan just because Deebo's complaining, right? Like, that would be crazy when you finally find a winning formula to go to Deebo in this must-have win game. Like, it was like a playoff level game because if they lost, the season was over. And no, Kyle wanted to make Deebo happy, wanted to kiss his, ass, and he force-fed Deebo the ball in the Rams game. Deebo fucking dropped the ball. He fumbled. When he did catch the ball, he got hit immediately and stopped, didn't break any tackles. And the fucking 49ers season was over. And he did all that to keep Deebo happy. And look, end of the season, and Deebo still demanded a trade. To me, the second because by the way, they ended up winning that Tampa game, and they were winning when Deebo threw that punch. I understand. I think Jake Moody should be cut too. I'm not saying what he did is right. Kittle is a leader. In that game, Kittle, using his brain, said, we're not going to fire Jake Moody in the game, like in the middle of this game. He was probably hoping that they'd move on from him after the game. But in that very game, at that moment, they weren't going to be able to get a new kicker to fly in and start kicking in the middle of the game. So he put his arm around Jake Moody and tried to talk him up. Instead of doing that, captain Deebo Samuel gets in a fight, screaming at Jake Moody, ends up hitting Tabor Pepper, who was trying to stick up for Jake Moody. That's not what a captain does. And the second he did that, I think a real head coach who's not trying to just be buddy friends benches you and says, we're going to trade you or we're going to bench you and you need to come out and you need to make apology and whatever. And instead, Kyle went to the media and blamed Tabor Pepper for that interaction. And I don't know. To me, Kyle has let players, he let the players, fire Steve Wilkes. He let players hire Nick Sorensen because they love Nick Sorensen and how great he was. He's too whatever the players want, and I think they need a strong leader. And unfortunately, Kyle really cares about being friends with his players. Deebo Samuel's statement was, I know we're kind of sticking the topic, but let me read Deebo's statement because it was pretty insane. I have one more about Hurts versus Purdy, but I'll talk about Deebo first. Because I thought this was like a bit of egg on Kyle's face. The 49ers, so this was from Adam Schefter. The 49ers have granted Deebo Samuel and his agent, Tory Dandy, permission to find a trade partner for the wide receiver. Samuel told ESPN this comes after Samuel asked San Francisco to trade him during his player exit interviews after last season, which, by the way, do you remember in the exit press conference when I think it was Eric Branch, but it was one of the media members. I think Eric Branch, but don't quote me on that. Asked John Lynch, like, are they going to trade Deebo? And John Lynch was like, no. Why would I do that? That means Deebo had already demanded a trade by then, by the way. But this is what Deebo said. It was a hard conversation to have with Kyle Shanahan because of the relationship we have, Shanahan said today. But I have to do what's best. I'm more than thankful for the 49ers giving me the opportunity of a lifetime, but I think it's best that we find another team. So that means Kyle Shanahan was probably walking into that player exit interview like, okay, Deebo's my friend. He fucking sucked again this year. If you remember last year, Kyle apparently like took Deebo aside and had him watch film of himself not getting open and said like, dude, you need to come back in better shape. Like, look at this. And that's when Deebo came out and he actually, I thought, took accountability and kind of was like, yeah, I had a down year. Kyle showed me the tape. And I imagine that Kyle was going back to be like, I know that you apparently lost some weight, but you still are dropping the ball. You're fumbling the ball. You're not getting open. You cannot get open against man coverage. What the hell, dude? He was probably going in there trying to have a hard conversation, but also being like, oh, this is my friend and I don't want to piss him off. And then imagine Kyle, he's sitting down there like, okay, I gotta be strong because this is my buddy. I gotta be strong and I gotta tell him he didn't do that good. And then Deebo walks in and tells you, I didn't get enough opportunity and you need to trade me. And he's probably like, okay, motherfucker, get off the team. But also, no one's going to trade for you. We're going to have to cut you. And we just extended your goddamn contract. That was, to me, it just makes, when we're talking about the Eagles and what a great organization they are, how incompetent the 49ers are. What an incompetent organization. Not good. Would you trade pick 11 for Myles Garrett? I think we are going to go edge in the first round anyways. Yes, definitely. But I think they'd want more. I think they're going to want maybe 2 first round picks. Like they'd want but if you could convince them 11 pick and maybe next year second and third or something, I would definitely do that. Because no guy that you get at 11 is going to be good as Myles Garrett. And a lot of your team is older. So you might as well go all in now. Kind of like the Warriors. You know what I mean? Like you could either start rebuilding and go younger, or you could just try to say fuck it and go all in with Curry. Anyways. Oh, okay. Shanahan does not need or take lessons. He's the smartest man that ever lived. You disagree with him, you go back to Jim Tom Sula and Chip Kelly. Yeah, a lot of fans think this way, right? Like you can't critique Kyle because if you move on from Kyle, or if you criticize Kyle, maybe you want to move on from Kyle, and that means they're going to get stuck with the worst defense or with the worst head coach ever. And they fail to look that all around the league, there's multiple teams that are going to NFC championship games and going to the playoffs and winning Super Bowls that aren't Kyle Shanahan. So those coaches do exist. I I don't think you move on from him now. I thought Ben Johnson would have been a guy that I would have, if I was Jed York, I would have interviewed and been really interested in. But Kyle Shanahan's going to get one more chance. Robert Saleh is going to be back. Hopefully, he makes a big impact on this defense. And, I think even if Kyle is still the head coach, I hope, and I don't know this. I don't know if we'll know this until the draft or until next year, but I hope that a little bit of power is taken away from him and he's not the GM too. Because I know John Lynch is the GM, but Kyle Shanahan is the one making actual decisions. John Lynch has even came out and said that he defers to Kyle. And I think that you need to allocate. You can't do everything at 100%. So Kyle needs to focus on his one thing. I think they need, an assistant coach. I know they brought in Gus Bradley, but I think they need an assistant coach. They need someone that's going to help you with fourth down decision making, with game time decision making, with knowing the rules. And I think you need to really rely on your scouts and let them make the picks. Those are the guys that have been watching college football for not only all this year, but multiple years, where Kyle Shanahan himself has said that he doesn't even look at, the draft prospects in college until, the season is over. So I think you've got to lean a little bit more on those guys. Still have Kyle, at least for now, be the head coach, but take a little bit of the power away from him. You don't need one man running the show. That's how his dad got fired. His dad had too much power. He didn't allocate, and his team started suffering because it was all on one guy. And that's not how good teams are run. I mean, the Eagles just won. They have, a head coach that's all about the, emotions and handling that aspect of it. They have a guy that helps with game time decision making. They have an offensive coordinator. They have a defensive coordinator. They have a GM, and all, five of those people are completely separate, and they excel at what they do. And I think that's, if you're not Andy Reid, that's what you do. And even Andy Reid, I think, has a lot of help. So, Josh Allen panicked harder than Brock Purdy I disagree. The refs screwed the Chiefs today. It was comical. The only thing that sucks coming from a Niner fan perspective, is it was the Eagles. I'm happy you're joining me, Jensen, but I disagree with both of your takes. I think the refs were pretty fair across the board. They had a crazy call that favored the Chiefs in the very beginning, and then I think they maybe missed one on the Chiefs, but they missed multiple in the. I thought this was the one Chiefs game that you could say calls were made on both sides. Calls that help the Eagles, calls that help the Chiefs, calls that win against both. Yeah, I think Josh Allen is the MVP and played great. I completely disagree. He had two should have been picks in the very beginning of that game and then balled out for the rest of the game, in my opinion. So that's it. Come on, guys, hit that like button. Let's get Ashley at as many likes as people are watching. Hell yeah. I see like almost 200 people are watching on YouTube plus Twitter. My numbers give me those put together. And I don't know how many likes we have, but likes definitely help with the algorithm. They help push my channel out, and that, makes me happy. I'm excited that I could go live after the game. I'm, wanted to talk about when I heard the Deebo news and all that. Also, Diana Rossini did say that the 49ers and Brock Purdy have finally opened up talks for extensions for him. They've also already started to open up contract extension talks with George Kittle. I figured both those things. I thought that they're probably going to want to finish Brock Purdy's deal. I was originally thinking OTAs, but maybe even, the draft and free agency, because you want to know how much money you're going to have left over to pay everyone else. Now, even if it's not 100% locked up, I think you probably have a roundabout idea. So I definitely think you want Purdy at least done by OTAs, because you need to have him there practicing. And if you are new to my channel, I've been very pro have Purdy play out the rest of his deal and don't pay him. But I'm under this. I'm not don't pay him ever, but don't pay him this year. Have him play it out, see if he earns another deal. Because he had one good year, one down year. I wouldn't pay him right now. I'm of the mind that the 49ers are 100% going to pay him, though. So if you're going to do that, get it done by OTAs. So all your wide receivers and your quarterbacks are there. You can start building chemistry. No more offseason excuses for the 49ers. And then same thing, I think Kittle earned his contract the last couple of years. He was looking a little bit old and broken down. And obviously, I don't think you want to give him too long of a deal. I think he is, getting older. But he's, he had maybe the best year of his career either this year or last year. So you got to extend him. This maybe is just a 49er fan in me. So if you disagree, I'm open to it. But I hope that Kittle finishes his career with the 49ers. I think he's such a quintessential 49er. I think he's such a leader. He's so selfless. Like when we talk about Deebo and wanting the ball and all that, like George Kittle could be like Travis Kelce. Like he could have that many targets. I fucking wish he did. I wish Kyle would target Kittle more. And I think last year, especially when they were losing, Kittle started asking for more targets because he was like, no one is getting open. Like, throw me the fucking ball. Like, I will actually do that. But when they're winning, if Kittle has to block, you won't hear a peep from him. He just wants the team to win. He's all about the team, all about team success. I think he's an excellent leader, like I was talking about earlier when I was talking about the leaders on the team. Whether the example is Jake Moody, quarterback, whatever. I think that I have a soft spot for George Kittle, and I do hope he retires a 49er. And I'm glad to know that they've opened up contract talks with him. Julie B, who I always love to see, so I wanted to bring up her comment, says, I really don't like the Eagles, but but they sure impressed the hell out of me tonight. I was actually starting to feel bad for Mahomes before he scored those 2 touchdowns. It was absolutely ruthless. Wow, I completely agree. I looked at my friend very end of the 3rd quarter, I think, and I was like, are they not going to score any points? I was like, holy shit, this is insane. And then my other friend was texting me, and she doesn't know a ton about football, so she was like, oh, talk to me about it. And it was right when the Chiefs just scored, and I was like, that touchdown doesn't mean anything. Like, this is just about making the score a little bit less embarrassing. Um, and I agree. It was kind of, you know, it's funny because it was like cathartic, but I think either way, whatever team would have lost, like it's hard when they like zoom in on their faces and they're like sobbing, and you're like, oh my god, like these guys, whatever team they are, they're playing through injury and they've gotten this far, and it's probably their dream to win a Super Bowl. At least with the Chiefs, a lot of those guys, I'm like, you've already won multiple Super Bowls, you're gonna be fine. Patrick Mahomes, you'll get plenty of more opportunities probably, But I agree, Julie. And I was the same way. Like going into it, I wasn't sure who I wanted to win. But when I saw the Chiefs or the Eagles kind of turn it around and play so dominant, I was like, damn, this is pretty cool. Like, this is a cool story for them. This is a cool story for Jalen Hurts, A lot of people have doubted Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts was not a good passer and honestly still isn't the best passer. So I was proud. Kelsey was awful tonight. Yeah, he had multiple drops, and was just shut down regardless of that. I remember people were like, "Oh, if they win, is he going to propose to Taylor Swift?" And I was like, "This is why you don't tie like a proposal with like a win, because what if you lose? Now I don't get married." No, I don't think that was real, but yeah, and I hope they're happy. And I'm not one of those people that hates that Taylor Swift is on the team. One, I'm a big Swiftie, but two, I think like grown men who watch football can deal with a girl being on your screen for 4 seconds. Like, she's a billionaire mega pop star. It's okay if they show her. Doesn't mean that the NFL is rigged. It just means that she's a billionaire pop star. I mean, they were showing all the celebrities tonight, which to me just showed you if there's ever a celebrity there, they're going to show them. The only reason they've showed Taylor Swift more is she's actually dating a guy, so she's been to more games than all these other celebrities. But anytime there's any celebrity, they're going to put them on the TV. They showed Anne Hathaway. They showed Anne Hathaway was an Eagles fan, so they showed her getting down, but they showed there was like 2 other guys, but now I'm forgetting their name, but famous guys who were Chiefs fans, and they looked sad. It would suck to like, as 49er fans, we know it, but it would suck to like go to the Super Bowl and, when you're a Chiefs fan, you probably think you're going to win. Like at least 49ers fans, like I was like, I hope they win, but I'm not confident about it, Like I want them to win, and it was still sad even wanting them to win. But if you're Chiefs, like I feel like you expect to win, so that's like, oh, dagger. Anyways, okay. I might be. Oh, I wanted to do the one more. How did Philly destroy KC? Only saw a few minutes of the 3rd. Big Mig. I can't explain the whole game to you. Holy shit! I mean, the defense just. Okay, short version. You should watch. Go back and watch the game because I can't. But short version is Philadelphia defense was absolutely phenomenal. They were getting pressure left, right, and center on Patrick Mahomes. He, you know what I mean? Like he couldn't run to the side, he couldn't get a ball out. When he did get the ball out, he was panicked because he was getting so much pressure. So he threw multiple interceptions. They had a non-existent run game that completely shut down Travis Kelsey. The O line was kind of giving up, but also Patrick Mahomes was walking into some. It was a total defensive effort by both teams. I will say Spagnuolo and the Chiefs really shut down Saquon Barkley for the majority of the game. They kind of dared Jalen Hurts to win. And at the end of the day, Jalen Hurts made less mistakes. And I think his defense played better than the Chiefs did. It might have been, I will say there was at one point earlier on in the game, they showed Chris Jones. Is that his name? No. Chris Jones? Yes. What? My brain is breaking. I'll have to leave soon. But it was after the tush push, and they were like really digging his neck, and his face was like, so I think maybe he was injured for part of it. And that definitely could have played a factor. But mostly I felt like it was an effort of the trenches, which trenches are gonna play better, and Philly had the better all around team where and then also, I mean, they didn't have obviously matchup to matchup, I would say Mahomes is, a Hall of Fame, 10 times better quarterback than Jalen Hurts. But tonight, Jalen Hurts played better. So, what was the reason for the no call? Wouldn't have mattered, but still surprised at the no call. I was surprised at the no call too. I think they just didn't see it. Um, and that's why I said I think that first call that went against the Eagles and helped the Chiefs was egregious. But then earlier or later on in the game, they had a call that really would have helped the Chiefs and hurt the Eagles, and they didn't call it. So I think good and bad calls were called on both teams, and I think it evened out. But yeah, I was surprised that wasn't called too. Usually, I mean, if Mahomes like trips, he gets the call. So I was surprised that there was actually a reason for them to call and they didn't. Yes, Leroy. Talking to my dad, Mahomes got eaten up on every play. Yeah, he definitely did. Um, okay. I think I might move on to the last stop the magician. The show is over. Go watch the Raiders versus KC 23 Christmas. Did they give the Eagles the blueprint, or was it the opposite? I'm not sure. Yeah, I like someone was like, was she supposed to recap the Super Bowl? I don't think I did a great job, but I was, I don't have a lot of time to answer each question. I try to answer when I can. Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner are my favorites. I've heard that first of all, really quickly, because I saw Mr. Corey, Jalen Hurts has an all-female team, which I think is fucking awesome. He was asked about that in the, how the Super Bowl has media week, and I thought, gave a great answer, and he was like, I didn't seek out females, women. I just sought out the best, and the best all happen to be women, and I love that, especially with all the DEI shit that's going on. You know what I mean? Like, no, bitch, it's not about, we weren't given something some black and brown and women and mothers and all these things that DEI helps, they also earn their position. So I like that this was the first game where they had the end racism was taken off the end of the field, which I think is fucking horrible. But I like that, Kendrick Lamar came out and kind of had this very Black America performance, and it was kind of in the face of Trump. And then the Eagles, who have, a Black quarterback that I think doesn't get the credit that is deserved. I'm not saying he's, the best quarterback ever, but I think if he was white, he'd get way more credit. I think if Brock Purdy did what Jalen Hurts did, 49ers fans would be calling Brock Purdy the best quarterback, that's ever lived. Julie B says, I heart Kittle too. I completely agree. Oh, really quickly with Dre Greenlaw, there is reports that Robert Saleh definitely wants Greenlaw back. So I think that will happen. I was gonna say let's debate Purdy Hurts, but I think I'll just say something kind of short, and then we'll talk about it more tomorrow since I've already been going for an hour, and I want you guys to be able to get to bed because I know it's Sunday and people have work in the morning. But I think that if Brock Purdy had been to 2 Super Bowls, Jalen Hurts had a phenomenal performance in his first Super Bowl. They lost, but I thought he played great. If the Eagles would have won that game, he, to me, deservedly would have won MVP that game. He wins Super Bowl MVP today. And, limited his mistakes. He made downfield throws. He ran when he needed to. I think if Brock Purdy had a performance like that, the 49er fans would literally be comparing him to Joe Montana and Steve Young. And I think it's, a shame how much harder a black quarterback has to work to get some credit. And once again, this is coming from someone who I don't completely trust Jalen Hurts' arm. And some games I'm like, oh, it's very elementary. But I got to give him credit. He had a great game. And he's now been in 2 Super Bowl. He won a Super Bowl. He's the Super Bowl champion and a Super Bowl MVP. And that's pretty cool for Jalen Hurts. Will Brock Purdy get back to a Super Bowl? Will he have the chance to win a Super Bowl? Let's hope that, with that pick number 11 in the draft, if the 49ers don't go out and get Myles Garrett, which I would be a fan of. But if they don't get that, hopefully they get a solid defensive lineman with that number 11 pick. I hope they target the O-line with, their second pick or multiple picks in this draft because they also need to invest in that O-line. That's another thing that helps, Jalen Hurts is he has time to throw a lot of times. He can sit back there for, multiple seconds. I think he holds on to the ball too long, but a lot of times his O-line's holding up and it doesn't even matter. So if I'm the 49ers, you move off of Deebo Samuel, get him off your team, even though, like I said, it's stupid that they restructured him because now they're going to have to pay for it. Get a malcontent off your team. If a guy doesn't want to be there, bye. Because that's how the Rams would feel. That's how the Chiefs would feel. That's how Chiefs would have never extended Deebo, first of all. That's how the Eagles would feel. Like, it is a blessing to be in our organization. It is a blessing to be in this franchise, to be a wide receiver here. And if you don't feel that way, get the hell off the team. If this was your year as a captain, if this is who you are as a leader, get the hell off the team. You shouldn't have to ask them twice. Deebo's already asked for a trade once. This is now his second year in a row asking for, or not in a row, but second year asking for a trade. So I think you move off of him. You try to maybe, get a wide receiver either in free agency or way later on in the draft. Don't use an early pick. Unless like Ashton Genty or someone incredible falls to you, maybe they do something like that. But I really think the takeaway, obviously the Eagles have AJ Brown, who is a great wide receiver. But the 49ers, they have Kittle, they have Jennings. I'm not saying those two are as good as AJ Brown, but I think they have enough offensive weapons that you really invest in that D line, maybe in free agency, go out and get not Jalen Waddle. Who's the second wide receiver for the Bengals? I'm blanking right now. I'm getting tired. But, maybe in free agency, you go out and get another wide receiver. Definitely, I think they need to get a tight end in the draft, probably. But really, the number one things that they need to invest in, D-line, O-line. Hopefully, Robert Saleh makes a big impact with that defense. Hopefully, Kyle can, give a little power up and he can just focus on his creativity on offense. And I think you're going to need they need to figure out what to do with that run game. If I'm them, I put a second round tender on Jordan Mason because then no other team I think will match that. I think you have to do that with Jordan Mason because Chris McCaffrey, it was a week ago, I think it was reported that he was about to be fully healthy. He's 28, almost 29. Is that right? I think he's 28 years old. He suffered bilateral Achilles tendonitis, horrible, major injury, and then he tore up his knee with the PCL. So he needs, limited reps. He can't be the number one workhorse. I know that you don't want to move off of him. Obviously, you don't want to be the Giants who got rid of Saquon Barkley, but you need to have a backup plan in case the old injured running back is old and injured, and you need a good run game. Because even though the run game fizzled out, in this Super Bowl, the quarterback has to run too. So Brock Purdy, work on your mobility. But like I said, even though the run game fizzled out in the Super Bowl, in order to get there, they needed Saquon Barkley. So 49ers, invest in your trenches, invest in your offensive creativity. Think twice maybe about paying Brock Purdy, or if you do pay him something that's team friendly so that you can invest in all these positions in the draft, in free agency. You have those resources. And Brock Purdy, be ready to run because every team that made it to the Final Four, those quarterbacks were running. And Jalen Hurts, when Spagnuolo did shut down the run game with Saquon Barkley, the first run I think Jalen Hurts had was for 9 yards. And you need to be able to have that to move the chains. At one point when the Chiefs were completely shut down, one of the only positive plays in like an entire quarter that the Chiefs had was Patrick Mahomes running out of the pocket. So in today's NFL, you got to have a little bit of mobility as a QB, but we'll have much more takeaways tomorrow I'm going live with Tom Jensen on Tuesday. I might be going live also with Marco later on in the week. Marco literally last year was kind of calling the fact that there was some tension with Deebo Samuel. I told you that Ryan Hensley had told me Deebo Samuel, or told a bunch of people that Deebo Samuel sold his Morgan Hill house. So should have, I guess, known that Deebo was going to demand a trade. I just thought, it could be coincidence. So we'll be following the George Kittle contract extension, Brock Purdy contract extension, what's happening with Deebo, do 49ers have to pay him a bunch of money to not be on the team, all of that in this upcoming week. So make sure you give me a like and give me a subscribe. I know that it's the off season, but lots of content are going to come your way. And I really enjoyed talking to you guys about the Super Bowl. It was a little less heartbreaking than last year. I know last year I did about 2.5 hour stream and there was a lot of sad and angry people in the comments. And I don't blame you. I was all those things as well. But like I said, be safe. Have a good night. If you drank today, drink a big cup of water before bed. Take some magnesium if you can. You want to get those electrolytes. T. Higgins was the guy I was talking about a little while ago. So thank you guys so much and have a great night. I'll see you guys later on in the week. Bye.